GIS and Epistar, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong, maybe it's GIS and Epistar, are going to be supplying mini LED displays for Apple in the next generation iPad Pros and MacBook Pros. This gives us a little bit of information on the next generation products, but it also gives us a better indicator of when you should expect these new generation products, which is kind of up in the air right now. The leaks aren't really pointing at a specific launch date, so I'm just kind of diving into the possibilities in today's video and why you should be excited and scared at the same time. Death is coming. That's not related to this video. I'm just saying it's getting closer to all of us. Let's begin. So while Digitimes is one of the main analysts from this report, it is also backed by Quo, so it's not as sketchy as a typical Digitimes report. Quo has said in the past that Apple has plans to launch 4 to 6 more products with mini LED display technology, which is essentially the sort of redesigned display process. It's not OLED and it's also not LCD, to allow for more sustained brightness on displays, as well as, of course, extreme dynamic range. That's what XDR stood for, in case you didn't know. Those letters do occasionally mean something, not always, but this time they do. Same with Super Retina XDR, although the iPhones don't have mini LED tech. So I guess they just slap XDR on random things anyway. High dynamic range, no, that's not enough. We need extreme dynamic range. Even though Apple TV Plus originals aren't even gonna play in HDR on the Apple TV anymore. Apple, what the heck? What are you doing? Obviously, this is not going to be, I think, the same caliber of dynamic range that we have with the Pro Display, because that thing's insanely chonk. It's already thick, it's got a bunch of fans on the back. But what's supposed to be helpful about mini LED display technology is that it will allow for thinner and lighter products in the future, because I know everyone's angry that the iPad Pro, it's so dang thick, isn't it? Everyone's so upset by how thick the iPad Pro is, and we just can't wait till they can find a way to make it thinner. So yeah, while Apple's making the thicker 16-inch MacBook Pro, there's still another part of R&D that's like, you know what, 5.9 millimeters? That's not gonna cut it for me. I want my iPad to be as thin as a typical needle. That way, anytime someone tries to pick it up, they are just physically cut by how sharp it is. And then iPads could be even more functional because they'll replace your kitchen knives. But what's interesting about this report is they're alluding to there being a higher end 12.9-inch iPad Pro with mini LED display tech, which would mean that it's only on one size? This is the confusing part. There's been talks of new iPad Pros coming for a while now. There were some reports claiming they would come in October or November, and that didn't really line up with previous iPad Pro release schedules. For those of you uncultured tech enthusiasts who don't know, iPad Pros typically come out at around a year and a half apart, which means that no, you don't get one every 12 months like the iPhone, or maybe down the road you're gonna get one every 6 months. Please don't do that, Apple. Don't pull a Samsung and OnePlus. But those rumors didn't make sense, but now there's more rumors suggesting that perhaps new generation iPad Pros are coming in March of next year, and they're just gonna be mostly the same, except with a little bit faster CPU and a time-of-flight sensor. What? They're gonna get the time-of-flight sensor before the iPhones? I don't know. I still have a hard time believing those reports. If the iPad Pro launch were to line up with previous generation launches, it would make the most amount of sense for them to announce the next generation at Worldwide Developers Conference. That would be about 18 months after the launch of this current iPad Pro. But here's the thing. I'm not completely doubtful of the idea that this report is alluding to, that new iPad Pros might not even be coming until Q3 of 2020, around the time the next gen iPhones come out, because these iPad Pros are already so ahead of their time. A12X chip, it's over a year old, but in comparison to other ARM chips, it still hasn't been beaten. The 120 Hz display, the thin bezels, Face ID working, upside down, sideways, normal ways, but I know, that surprises no one. It works. Face ID works, which is nice, but it works better on the iPad Pro than still the latest iPhones, despite this being a year old. Honestly, do they need to upgrade it that fast? I know some of you may be holding out for one. Some of you are like, well, I'm gonna wait for the next one. I'm gonna wait for the next one. But then you're just like, I hope it comes out soon, because I'm getting impatient with this broke Touch ID. Not that Touch ID doesn't work. It's just that you're broke if you have an iPad with Touch ID. But there's also some of you, I'm sure, that just got an iPad Pro because of your Black Friday Cyber Week deals. And now you're like, oh God, please don't let another one come out soon. So everyone has something to lose here. That's the important thing to remember. Unless you bought an iPad Pro back in October, in which, you know, one could come out in March and it's like, okay, this lasted a long time. Or it could come out in September of next year and it would still last you a really long time. So I win. you lose. So, important thing to remember is that Apple is considering a next generation iPad Pro that may exclusively come at the 13-inch size, because trying to compress these mini LEDs into a smaller form factor like the 11-inch iPad Pro may turn out to be too difficult. Am I that excited for better dynamic range in my iPad? Not really. The nice thing about this report is knowing that my iPad Pro is still going to be the latest version for like almost another year. I'm kind of excited about that part, but this could potentially mean that the iPad Pro never sees a version of the A13 chip. Like, they never get the A13X, which is just supposed to be a little bit faster, so Apple actually will skip a year and not launch a new iPad Pro until the fall of next year with an A14X chip, and that I think you could expect to be substantially better than the A12X chip, because this chip is so dang slow, am I right? But if Quo is right, and there is a new iPad Pro coming out in Q3 of next year, that could potentially be bad if there ends up being new iPad Pro upgrades in just a few months in March of next year, because that would mean they drop new iPad Pros. Okay, they got the A13X chip, maybe they use some beefier aluminum. One high request I have, this isn't a leak, but I would love it, could they put Face ID on the top bezel here? Because they know 90% of the time we're using it in this orientation, and I keep covering up Face ID sensors. They work well, but I feel like most people are using the iPad in landscape, so could you move the sensors to the side? That would be really helpful. But probably, you know, small, fairly incremental upgrade in March, followed by a giant display upgrade, which is mostly focused on dynamic range, which should provide a lot of the benefits of OLED with those rich colors, while simultaneously you don't have to worry about OLED burn-in. That's not a problem with mini LED, and hopefully those thinner display panels can allow for bigger batteries on the inside. Hopefully that means no compromising on ProMotion. People love 120 hertz on the iPad, Apple. Don't touch that. Don't mess around with that. Keep that where it is. If you're moving to mini LED, keep ProMotion, okay? Don't let that be a factor on whether or not you make the switch. If you can't put ProMotion on the next iPad, don't even bother with new display tech, okay? But part of this rumor I should also bring up that you're not gonna like if you're enjoying your 16-inch MacBook Pro is that mini LED tech is also rumored to be supplied for future generation MacBook Pros. So yeah, that thought of MacBook Pro XDR display may end up becoming a reality. Some people may really care about having that extreme dynamic range on the MacBook, but with that thin display panel on the top, there's no way it's going to be as good as the Pro Display XDR. With all those fans on the back, it's probably going to be like slapping XDR on the iPhone Pros. Like, yeah, it's a little bit better than last time, but it's mostly the same. Except they're going to be trying to incorporate mini LED technology in this MacBook Pro. How they're going to get it that thin, because it's even thinner on the MacBook Pro display panel than it is on the iPad, because this is all just one piece, that's going to be tough. So I imagine it's probably not coming till the end of 2020, but we'll see in time. The important thing is your 16-inch MacBook Pro likely going to be dated in like 6 months. Sorry, that sucks. Let me know what you're most excited for in the next generation iPad Pro. Do you not care about this XDR tech at all? Or are you hoping more for like the MacBook Pro to get 120 hertz maybe? Because if they're making mini LED for the iPad, that means 120 hertz. But if you're also making it for the MacBook, can we get a few Macs in the lineup that also have ProMotion? As a huge refresh rate junkie, I would appreciate it, Apple, very much. I would appreciate it very much, please. And can we please get a display stand for the iPad Pro? I would gladly pay over $1,000 for a metal stand that I can attach my iPad Pro to. If we're gonna make this thing XDR, let's just go all the way. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.